Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to part 1 of this gearing guide. Before I begin, make sure that you hit the subscribe button so that you are always up to date on all Babbler Warmane guides, and don't forget to check out our other content as well, and welcome to the Babbler family. This guide assumes 4 things. First, that your 80 is fresh, having a gear score between 1.5 and 2K. 2, that you do not have any other 80s that can assist in the gearing process. 3, that you are gearing specifically for PvE content. And 4, that you are on a Wrath of the Lich King server. Please note that while this guide should be applicable to all Wrath of the Lich King servers, it is specifically tailored for the Icecrown server on Warmane. Some information from my top 10 things to know about private servers may also be useful in this guide, as I make references to it, so be sure to check it out if you haven't already. With all that out of the way, let's get started. The first thing that you should do as soon as you hit 80 is begin your ICC Ashen Verdict rep grind. This is done by joining or forming raid groups that only clear the initial trash in Icecrown Citadel, leaving the instance, resetting it, and then clearing it again. There are typically groups forming for these rep runs in Global or Trade, although if none are to be found, you can certainly form your own group. Just make sure you know how to properly reset the raid. The rep gained from killing these mobs allows you to pick up an item level 277 ring at Exalted. It typically takes 10 to 15 clears to go neutral to Exalted, and can take a couple hours to do, so if you find yourself short on time, you can just pick up the rep ring at lower tiers and upgrade it later when you get the time to work your way to Exalted. Even Friendly Rep will give you a 251 ring, which is excellent for a fresh 80, and you should get Friendly with 1 full trash clear. The second thing you should do is craft high-level gear. For just about every class and spec, there are 2 264 and 2 245 craftable pieces of armor. Typically, the 264s are the legs and feet, while the 245s are the chest and wrists. These pieces of gear are not craftable immediately, as they take both time and money to farm and craft. However, allow me to break it down for you so it is a little less scary. It is important to start farming the materials for these pieces early because it will take you a while to do so, but there are pieces you can craft in the meantime. Many item level 200 pieces can be crafted for much cheaper, with minimal farming and effort. Creating these pieces will spur you closer to being ready for heroics, which is where gearing becomes much simpler. Crafting the 4 big pieces will give you a huge boost for getting ICC ready. More on that part 2 of this guide. But I mention them now because you need to begin the material gathering process early. It is still worth looking at the 245 pieces though, because you may be able to craft those for less than you think, and they are some of the most powerful items you can get without being ready to do raids or heroic dungeons. As far as crafting them, if you followed the advice of my top 10 things to know video, then you should be able to craft the item level 200 items yourself. The recipes for the 245 and 264 items are a little trickier to obtain, and as a fresh 80 with no support, it is impractical to try to get these recipes yourself. Although in a later video I will address the process of farming and crafting those powerful pieces in more detail. In order to craft the larger pieces, you will need to find someone that has the recipes you need. You may not even know what pieces you do need, so in order to check you can either Google it or you can ask in trade/global. Finding a person to craft your items can be challenging, but generally if you aren't in a guild already, joining one can be a great way to find someone who will craft your items for free if you provide them the mats. If you can't do this, then just make sure you don't overpay for the craft, and make sure that you take screenshots of the transaction in case they decide to ninja your materials and leave you with nothing. If you run into materials that you can't farm or are unwilling to invest the time into farming, you can also just buy the materials. The easiest way a fresh 80 can make money is by questing in Northrend. Some of the higher level areas in Northrend award over 50 gold per quest, and some more significant quests give you over 100. The basic thing is this. Crafting your own gear is a lot better than hitting your head against the wall trying to farm normal dungeons, especially considering the queue times are horrible in normal, and you run the risk of getting low-end dungeons such as the Nexus or Rootguard Keep, where you literally have 0% chance for an upgrade to your gear. The third thing you should do to get ready for heroics is to head to the auction house. Before you even do ICC rep runs, you should head over there and look at level 80 gear for your spec and class. You will often find a few pieces of item level 200 gear with stats that are good for you at a very cheap price. In most cases, you can get 3 or 4 pieces of gear here for an average of 150 gold per item pre-squish. Not only this, but for some classes and specs, there are cheap epics that drop off ICC trash. These epics are 264 item level items that can sell anywhere from 100 gold to 800 gold for a single piece. The gear score increase from even one of these is well worth the investment for a fresh 80 that is hunting for heroic eligibility. Just remember, when buying gear, make sure that the stats are meant for whatever role you are playing. No one appreciates a rogue wearing druid healing gear just because the gear score increase helped them sneak into heroics. The fourth thing you should do is begin farming Forge of Souls, Pit of Sauron normals. Some people even argue that as soon as you hit 80, you can begin farming these ICC 5-man dungeons. If you're comfortable with that, then by all means you should do it. but I advise you at least craft a couple 200s, get a friendly rep ring, and check the auction house before you head into these dungeons, especially if you are a tank or a healer. A gear score around 2.4 or 2.5k should be fine to start running these. Forge of Souls and Pit of Sauron both drop item level 219 gear on normal, which is fantastic gear for a fresh 80. And the bosses also drop an Emblem of Triumph each as well, a perk that no other normal dungeon gives you. To run these dungeons, you should fly to the frozen halls at Icecrown Citadel, where there are typically plenty of people looking for willing adventurers to join their party. Your first time through, you will need to attune yourself to the dungeons by doing Forge of Souls first and taking the quest from Sylvanas Windrunner. Don't forget to turn in the quest at the end of Forge of Souls before running through the portal to Pit of Sauron, so you'll be standing near the entrance to the final boss room where you came from. These quests also give you some Emblems of Frost, which can be used later in the gearing process. If you follow these 4 initial gearing steps, you should be ready for heroics in a day or 2 at most. Putting it into condensed form, as soon as you hit 80, you should head to the auction house with a couple thousand gold. If you don't have it, do quests until you do. Buy a cheap 264 epic if one is suitable for your class, and a handful of item level 200 pieces, 2 to 4. Next, join an Ashen Verdict rep run, grind as long as you want, but be sure to at least get friendly with them and take your item level 251 ring by the entrance. After that, run Forge of Souls Pit of Sauron until you get bored, then switch to farming materials for item level 200 pieces that you need. If you can craft even one 245 item level piece and a couple 200s, and get 1 or 2 219 drops from Forge of Souls Pit of Sauron, then you should be ready for random dungeon finder or heroics. This concludes part 1 of this gearing guide. Remember to subscribe for part 2 of the guide, where we will discuss the best way to get yourself ready for raiding an ICC, and to be notified whenever future guides and content comes out. So thank you everyone for watching. My name is Zeru, and this is The Babblers.